It's Miss Gubrud. Today's lesson is on polygons and their attributes. Attributes is kind of a fancy math word that means characteristics, things that make certain polygons be able to fit into that category. So we'll talk more about what that means in today's lesson. So I first want to show you that today's lesson says watch the polygons and their attributes. And I'm going to click on that. I'm going to make myself a little smaller here so you can see that a little easier. But take a look. It says, let's see if it's going to let me, let me pop my little screen up. That's okay. It says, watch the teaching video while you work on today's assignment. Every day, you should be watching the video while you then pause and work on the assignment, watch a little more, pause and work on the assignment, watch a little more, pause and work on the assignment. You're going to work on classifying polygons, but you will notice that it is not connected to today's assignment. It says, please note, this assignment doc is in yesterday's Google Classroom. Remember yesterday, we started it. We only got partway through. I told you to stop. So you stopped at the spot you were supposed to. We're going to finish it up today. So let's click on that again. Get rid of that. Let's go back into yesterday's assignment, Introduction to Geometry. Let's go down and find it. There it is, Classifying Polygons. So you're going to click on yours, Classifying Polygons. Whoops. All right. That's giving me a weird message there. Oh, okay. I have no idea what that was about, but I guess it cleared it up. Okay. Now remember, this is a PDF file. You need to open with Cami. So you're going to click on Open and Annotate with Cami. Remember, you might have that little button up here on the top like I do. If you do, that's fine. But if you don't, click Open With. Now it has to think a minute, as you know. So we'll just wait, pause it for a minute while it's thinking. You can be doing this. You can pause the video and be doing this so that you're right back with me when I'm back. All right, we're back. Now, this is the page that we're on. This green heading, it says Identifying Polygons and Their Properties. This is what we're working on today. So, remember, a polygon has a couple of things. It has to be, to have a polygon, it has to be all a closed-sided shape. There can't be any gates open. So it has to be completely closed, but it also can't have any circular edges. It has to have straight edges, straight sides in order to be a polygon. Circles and ovals, not polygons. Shapes where they have a little opening, like if you had animals in the pen and they could get out the pen, not a polygon. So polygons, we're going to talk about the number of sides of a polygon is 3. What's the name of that polygon? Here I'm going to have you start and stop the video quite regularly. So be prepared to be working on your document and starting and stopping this video. What's the name of a polygon that has 3 sides? I hope this is a review for you. Pause the video and write it in. All right, I hope you wrote triangle because triangles have 3 sides. That's hopefully a review. Okay, now let's look at the prefix. What does the prefix of triangle mean? The prefix is the part of the word that starts at the beginning, and it has its own meaning, TRI. The prefix is TRI. What does it mean? There's the prefix. What does it mean? It means 3. I hope you know it means 3. That's what triangle means. It means it has 3 angles, triangle. So you see me typing on this doc. You can absolutely do that. Remember, you could type with the text box. You could write with your writing tool. That's absolutely fine. Now, I'm going to pause and show you another doc that we're working on. All right, let's take a look at our Unit 2 vocabulary doc. Here it is. So this is, whoops, I'm on the wrong thing here. I'm on triangles. Oh yeah, I am. I'm on the right thing. Triangles, look at this. Triangles. They are polygons with 3 sides and 3 angles. Tri means 3. Here's some examples, and we'll learn more about these as we go through the unit. They might be review. The fact that some are acute, some are equilateral, some are isosceles, some are scalene. Lots of them have 2 names we can classify them by. Some are right, but there's what triangles are: polygons with 3 sides and 3 angles. All right, now let's go back to other words that have that prefix. What other words have the prefix tri? Pause and see what you can come up with. Write yours in while I'm paused and then come back to me. All right, here's some I thought of. Tricycle. There's the TRI prefix right there. Tricycle. Triathlon. It's an event where you swim and bike and run. You have to do all three of those things. So there's 3 events. It's triathlon. And also triptych. You might not be familiar with this word, but it's a series of 3 pictures that all go together. Sometimes you might see where someone has on their wall, they've got a lovely wall display with 3 pictures, and they're individual pictures, but they all kind of blend together to show some common situation. So it's called a triptych. And then the reason is because it has 3 pictures in it. What did you come up with? If you came up with something different, send me a note about it so I can add it. Now, we're going to do pictures of different kinds of polygons that fit this category. So we need to put some different pictures of triangles. Now, here's the trouble. As soon as kids start drawing triangles, this is what they draw. That's a good triangle. Great. But that's not the only triangle. So you need to draw a triangle that has a really wide angle. We call that the obtuse triangles. So draw one with a really wide angle. What about one that's a right triangle, where it has a 90-degree corner? What about that one? What about one that's like a right triangle, but the sides are the same length? We could call that a right isosceles triangle. So there's all different kinds of triangles. What about an acute triangle where all the angles are smaller than 90, but it's not the same? It's not the same. There we go. I don't know. That's close. So go ahead and draw different kinds of triangles in your box there. Pause, do that, and come back. All right, what about number 4? What about a polygon with 4 sides? What do we call that? Again, hopefully that's a review for you. I'm going to use my text box. And, oops, there we go. And I'm going to write quadrilateral. We call polygons with 4 sides. The most basic term for that is quadrilateral. So I'm going to write quadrilateral there. Quad is the prefix. Remember, prefix means the part of the word that's at the front. Quad. Oh, let's see if it'll let me do another text box. There we go. Quad means 4. Now, there we go. Oh, yeah, that worked. I'm going to resize this one too, so it fits better into my box there. There we go. There we go. Quad means 4. Now, what other words have that same prefix? Start with the word quad. Pause the video, write in your answers, then come back and see if we agree, or if you thought of ones I didn't, or if I thought of ones you didn't. All right, what did you come up with? I came up with quadriceps. Those are our muscles in our legs. So they are these thigh muscles. Why do we call them quadriceps? Because we have 4 muscles, 2 on each leg. So there's 4 muscles. Those are called our quadriceps. I also thought of quad bike. Have you ever seen a quad bike? It's in like an ATV. It has 4 tires. That's why we call it a quad bike. Here's a tricky one. Quadruped. I thought maybe some of us who lived on a farm might know what a quadruped is. It's an animal that has 4 legs. What did you come up with? Again, if you came up with some other ones, you should send me a chat or something, because we got to add these. Now, we're going to go and draw pictures of 4-sided shapes. This is especially going to be easy for you and also tricky. Just drawing a square, not going to cut it. You're going to have to draw not only a square. That's good. There it is. There's my square. But squares are not the only 4-sided shape. You're trying to draw as many different 4-sided shapes as you can. Pause the video, draw as many different 4-sided shapes as you can, come back and see if we agree. All right, here's some that I drew. There's my square. I also drew a rectangle. This is kind of a messed up one that just has 4 sides. I was trying to draw a rhombus actually, but it did not work out as a rhombus. This one kind of looks like a trapezoid a little bit. So that could be a trapezoid if those lines were parallel. This is an unusual, it's a different kind of a trapezoid. It has 4 sides. So all of those, the only one, what I'm looking now, I don't have is a parallelogram. Let me see if I can draw a parallelogram. So the 2 lines go parallel, and then these 2 lines go parallel. There's a parallelogram. So there's my parallelogram. So what ones did you draw? Let's go on to a five-sided shape. What's a five-sided shape called? Hopefully you know this. Pause and write it in. All right. It's called a pentagon. I hope you wrote that in. Let's go back to our vocabulary and take a look. We were on triangles. We went to quadrilaterals. There it is. Let's present. Oh, it takes a minute to start, doesn't it? There we go. There's our quadrilaterals. That was just a moment ago. Polygons with four sides and four angles. There's our square, rectangle, parallelogram, rhombus. That's a trapezium, trapezoid. There's a kite. There's just irregular. It's just a weird shape that has four sides, and they're straight lines, and they have four corners. So it's a quadrilateral. So quad means four. There is the definition for that. Now I'm going to click on it. Whoops. It's taking a minute. Oh, there we go. Now we're at pentagons. Pentagons. Hopefully that's what you wrote. You wrote pentagon. Penta means five. So you can see a couple of five-sided shapes. That's a weird one. It's kind of a messed up one. There's the one that's very typical. We see that one a lot. So pentagons. Let's go back and fill in some information about pentagons. The prefix penta. Well, hopefully now you're like, yeah, I see the pattern. The prefix tells us what that number means. So the number, the pentagon means, penta means five. The prefix penta means five. Now, you're going to think of what other words have that prefix penta in it. And this is tricky. This is a harder one than some of the others. See what you can come up with. Pause the video and then come back when you've got some ideas written down. All right, that was a hard one for me. I came up with the Pentagon, which is kind of silly because it's the same word, but this is actually a place. This is a place where high-level folks in our federal government hang out who are in the intelligence community. So this is like, if you think of like FBI, CIA, this is where people who have a lot of information about our country and what's going on with it in terms of intelligence, and then around the world. It's a lot of it is housed and hubbed in the Pentagon. Of course, they call it the Pentagon because the building is shaped like a pentagon. But I Googled it up. I thought, there's got to be more. Take a look at this. So I Googled it up. Check out what Google says. Oh my goodness, those words are tough. Like, whoa, no wonder we can't think of a lot of other words. So that is tricky. But all the pentas, they all mean five. So they all have something to do with five. So Pentagon, we saw a picture of the typical Pentagon, and that's like the Pentagon, the building, the Pentagon. So that's the one that looks like kind of like this. And if you've ever seen it from above, the building, the Pentagon, you know that it's actually inside. There's a Pentagon too. It looks like that. So if we're looking at the bird's eye view, that looks like the Pentagon, the building that's in Washington, D.C. Now, there are other kinds of pentagons. For instance, a typical house, if you think of like a house a little kid would draw, there's a Pentagon. Now, remember, these are supposed to be straight lines, and I'm not the greatest drawer. You got to just kind of bear with us there on that. But pentagons, so draw the regular pentagon, kind of like that we see. Draw the house, and then see if you can draw one more, just random one. It can look like anything at all as long as it has five sides. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A boot. Who knew? Okay, you can make a boot into a pentagon. All right, let's go on to the next one. I'm going to scroll down here a little bit, and I'm on number 6. What do we call a six-sided shape? Pause the video, write it in, come on back. Well, hopefully you knew that was a hexagon, and you've probably got the system now. What is the prefix and what does it mean? The prefix is hex, and it means, it means 6. Now, let's go back and see what our vocabulary situation looks like. There's pentagon. Let's go down one more. 2 hexagon. There it is. Now this is kind of a cool hexagon because it is a hexagon shape made up of triangles. And you might say, okay, but how does that work? Take a look at this. Take a look at that. There's a hexagon, and inside there's a small hexagon that's made up of 6 triangles. There's another small hexagon made up of 6 triangles. Whoops. There's another hexagon made up of a small hexagon made up of 6 triangles. It's kind of a cool thing about hexagons is they are a very, very stable shape. And there is something that very famous that's made out of hexagons, and we'll put that on our list. It doesn't actually have the word hexagon in it, but it's super famous. And you might say, oh, yeah, I know what that is already. So what other words, though, what other words start with the prefix hex? Can you think of any? Pause and write that in. All right, I had question marks. I couldn't think of any other hex words that I knew. So I went to Google, which maybe you did too, and look what it showed me. None of those are words that are going to help me remember. So I just have to remember that hex and 6 both have X's in them. So I'm going to go over here and put a question mark, and then I'm also going to say both hex and 6 have an X. That's how I'm going to have to remember it. I can't remember it like maybe if you own a quad bike, you know it has 4 wheels, and that makes it easy for you to remember. Quadrilateral has 4 sides. We don't have words like that for hexagon, but maybe you can remember that hex and 6 both have an X in them, and that can help you remember that. Now, hexagon, we're going to draw kind of a typical hexagon. We're going to draw one here. There we go. All right. So here's a typical hexagon. Doesn't look very perfect, but that's okay. There it is. Now, what else did you remember that has hexagon as its overall shape? Did you figure it out? Beehives. If you look at bee honeycombs, they're all little connected together like this, but they're all hexagons. Now, this is kind of a terrible representation, but this is what a honeycomb looks like. So if this helps you think of all of these 6-sided shapes, all these regular hexagons put together in a honeycomb, that's what that looks like. Now, remember that it doesn't have to have a regular 6 sides. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's a hexagon. Now, it's an irregular hexagon, but it has 6 sides, so it's classified as a hexagon. So remember, and this is so important in all of these, that it doesn't have to look like a regular of that kind of polygon in order to still be that kind of polygon. All right, let's take a look at a honeycomb. There it is. Check it out. It's hard to see, but you can see all the little hexagons, all one right next to each other. All these honeycombs are all shaped like hexagons, and they are very, very strong. So even though they're just made out of, the thinnest material, it still houses the bees, and it still houses all of their honey quite successfully because it's so, so strong. All right, we're done with one page. We need to go on to the next page. So let's pause and scroll to the next page. All right, here we are on the numbers of 7, 8, 9, 10. You've probably got the system by now. So I'm going to go a little faster here, but you're going to pause after each time and you fill it out, then watch me. Then you fill it out, then watch me. Don't just watch me do it and write down what I say, because that doesn't help you nearly as much as doing your own thinking. Nobody can think for you. Even on this awesome video, like I'm going to be a YouTube sensation, I still can't think for you. So you do the thinking, pause, and then see if you agree with me. Go ahead and start by pausing right now. The number of sides is 7. What do we call the name of that polygon? All right, there it is. Weirdly, this one has 2 names. You could call it a heptagon, or you could call it a septagon. So that is really surprising. They just have 2 different sort of etymologies. That means like the history of the word. They have 2 different ones of those. And so there's 2 different words that mean 7-sided shape, 7 with 7 angles, and that is a heptagon or a septagon. Now, the cool thing about that, let's scroll down here. Let's see. Here we go. Here we go. Here's the heptagon or the septagon. Now let's take a look. So we've got a polygon with 7 sides. Is a heptagon. Whoa, it's taking a minute to load. There we go. A polygon with 7 sides and 7 angles is hepta means 7. There's a regular heptagon, which kind of actually looks a little bit, you'd have to look carefully, it a little bit looks like a hexagon, doesn't it? You look at it and go, huh, how many sides? But you have to actually count the sides. You have to take your marker and go, okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 sides. So there they are. Now, you can also do some kind of an irregular shape. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That also has 7 sides. Hold the phone. You just told me, Miss Kubru, that septagon means 7. But isn't September the 9th month of the year? Take a look at that. Septagon, September, and that's the 9th month of the year. Wait a minute. Now, if you're saying, hold the phone, Miss Kubru, this doesn't seem right, you're exactly right. There is a weird disconnect here. Let's see if I can make myself bigger. There's a weird disconnect here. Here's what happened. A long time ago, they had a calendar called the Roman calendar. It didn't have any months in winter. Now, I don't really even know why. And that'd be something you could look up. That would be interesting to know why they didn't have a calendar with the winter months. But it started in March. So the first month was March. Then April, then May, then June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Now, the trouble is then when it started in March, that was the first month. But we in our calendar now, we have March be the 3rd month. So when they switched the calendar, they stuck in January and February, which was good because we needed to have some way to talk about the winter months. But they didn't change the numbering or the names. So they'd already named a month September, and it was the 7th month. When they stuck 2 more months in, all of a sudden September became the 9th month. And they didn't change the name. So they kept the name September, but instead of being the 7th month, now it's the 9th month. That's tricky because if you say to yourself, I can use the months to help me remember these prefixes, oh, you're in a hurt because September is not the 7th month of our calendar. It was the 7th month of the Roman calendar way 2000 and probably 2,500 years ago, 2,500 years ago is when September was the 7th month. So you're kind of out of luck like that. All right, let's go back. So here we go. The prefix. What does it mean? Hopefully you've got this filled out. Pause if you don't and fill it out with me right now. Come back when you're done. There we go. Sept and hept. They both mean 7. Now, other words that have that prefix, I already gave away that one. But can you come up with any other ones? Pause and see. All right. Hope you added in September. If you thought of other ones, good for you. But I do want you to know about the September one. Now, picture different kinds of polygons. Go ahead and draw your 7-sided one. Now, the harder these get, the harder it is for you to draw. Well, the harder it is for me to draw too. So we're just going to do our best trying to draw these 7-sided shapes. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right there. There's a 7-sided shape. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, not quite regular, but we'll still do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There it is. So do your best to draw different kinds of heptagons or septagons. Now, pause when you're done, and when you're done with it, come on to number 8. All right, here we are with number 8, 8-sided. This one is one that we talk about and use a lot. So this is probably one that you're pretty familiar with. This is an octagon, an 8-sided shape. If I can type, whoops, octagon. There we go. An 8-sided shape is the octagon. Now, what does oct mean? You've got the system down. Oct means, whoops, oct means 8. Now, this one's probably pretty easy for you too. What are other words that have this prefix? This one, you should definitely be able to come up with something. So pause and come up with something and come back. All right, I hope you got octopus. Oh, I think I spelled it wrong. There we go. So I got octopus too. So octopus, it has 8 legs or 8 arms. So hopefully that's one that can help you understand that octopus has 8 arms Octagon has 8 sides. Now, what's a super, super typical word associated with an octagon? There's something really, really familiar. Pause and write that word in. Aside from octopus, pause and write in the other word that we think of when we think of a classic octagon. I hope you said stop sign. Stop signs are octagons. We see them everywhere. It's very familiar. Let's try to draw one. Again, you don't have to be a super great drawer. No big deal. But do your best to try to draw something. Whoops, that's my phone. All right, so hopefully you wrote stop sign in there. Now let's take a look back at our vocabulary. Here it is, October, octagons, polygons with 8 sides. Oct means 8. Hold on. Wait a minute. Isn't October the 10th month of the year, not the 8th month? Same reason as last time. When they added January and February in, they bumped the whole calendar back. So now October, that used to be the 8th month, and that's why it was called October, now it's the 10th month. So it's still October, still has the prefix oct, but it's the wrong number for the wrong month. So let's go over here and add in, let's go to our text box here if I can. Oh, there we go. I gotta get my pointer. Hold on. Why is this not working? All right, I'm gonna pause here and figure this out. All right, there we got it figured out. So there's octopus and October. Both start with oct, and of course the stop sign. So go ahead and draw your different, there's the stop sign, 2 lines, one on top, one on bottom, then 2 lines on the side, and then connect all the lines together. That's how I draw an octagon. Now, again, it's not the best octagon ever, but there's my best try at doing a regular octagon. And then make sure you draw something weird. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There it is. Now, remember, they have to be straight lines, so we're going to pretend those are all straight. There's my weird octagon. Pause when you're done with that. Come on back for number 9. All right, thanks for coming on back. 9-sided figure, it's called a nonagon. You might not have ever heard that before. That's okay. So a 9-sided shape is a nonagon, and nona means 9. Now, this is another tricky one in terms of other words that can remind us of this. In fact, we don't run into nonagons very often. So do your best. Pause, fill this part in, see what you can come up with, and come on back. All right, I tell you what, there are very few times that you will hear your math teacher say, it's okay to say, I don't know. Here's an example of it. I don't know. I got nothing. So I even Googled it up like you maybe did. None of those words are going to help me. Not that they don't start with nana, but they're not words that I use all the time, and so they don't necessarily help me. So for this one, I got nothing. So nothing, if you just remember nothing, nada, nonagon, for 9, if that helps you, there it is. But I don't know if that's real helpful. This might be one where you just have to kind of practice it until you remember it. So go ahead and draw your nonagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's my nonagon. Not perfectly 9-sided, but there it is, 9-sided. Or you could try to draw one that kind of looks like an octagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's my nonagon. Now it's got to connect. Remember, to be a polygon, it has to be a closed-sided shape. So there it is. All right, we're on to number 10. 10's a little easier. So let's go to 10. 10-sided. What do we call them? You might know this. Pause and write it in. All right, it's a decagon. Did you know that? Did you know a 10-sided shape was called a decagon? Deca means 10. This is an easier one. There are words that we know that start with deca that mean 10. Pause and see what words you can come up with, and then see if you match the ones I came up with. All right, here's ones I came up with. Decade. Have you heard of a decade? It's 10 years. When we talk about decades, we might talk about the 80s or the 90s or the 2000s, the decade or the decade of the 50s or the decade of the 30s. It's 10 years. That's decade. Decathlon, that's an Olympic event where athletes do 10 different sports. It's kind of a track and field event where they throw, they run, they jump. So they have to do 10 different events to compete in the decathlon. Or maybe you've heard of the word decameter. Not one that we use a ton, but it means 10 meters. So you might have your body measurement for your meter. For me, it's from the tip of my fingers. Let's see, there we go. From the tip of my fingers all the way across to my other shoulder. So from here to here, that's my 1 meter long. And if I did that 10 times, that would be a decameter. So deca means 10. A decagon is a shape with 10 sides. So let's take a look at our vocabulary. Oh, there we're on octagon. So let's go to the next one. There's our nonagon. And that was from last time. There's our nonagon. And let's take a look at our decagon. All right, here we go. A decagon. It's polygon with 10 sides and 10 angles. Takes a minute to load. There it is. Now, take a look at this. A star, kind of one of these regular stars that we like to draw, that actually is a decagon. So you maybe didn't know that. You've maybe never stopped and counted, like, hold on a minute. Let's count those lines. Let's count those sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's kind of cool. Here's a decagon implanted on a circle. So it's kind of fun that you can see how each of the points touches the edge of a circle. And then they also connect to the other points. So that's kind of a cool thing. And then if you are a fan of science fiction, you are probably familiar with one of the best spaceships ever invented, the Millennium Falcon. There it is. So if you are a Star Wars fan, if you're a Han Solo fan, you probably are going, cool. I had no idea that that Han Solo was flying in a decagon, but now you know he's flying in a decagon. So that's cool. Uh-oh. Are you kidding me? I know that December is the 12th month of the year. How can all these decagons, how does deca mean 10? Right back to the same thing we talked about. Remember, December used to be the last month of the year, and it was number 10. They only had 10 months because they started in March. So it used to be the last month, and it was the month number 10. It's still the last month of the year, but we added 2 more, so now it's number 12. So even though December, we got to go in and add this in. Oops, I'm going to click my pointer, then go in and do that. Even here, I've got to go in and add in the word December, even though December in our calendar is the 12th month. The name actually means the 10th month. So go ahead and draw in your decagons, your 10-sided shapes, and then we are all done. Now you might say, is this all the polygons? There's a 10-sided shape. Is this all the polygons that we are named? No. 11-sided polygons have names. 12-sided is dodecagon. 13-sided, 14-sided, 15-sided. I don't know what they all are, but you could look them up if you're interested because they do all have names. Isn't that interesting? So go ahead and draw the 10-sided shape and then come on back. All right. Scroll down to classifying polygons with special names. These are all quadrilaterals with special names. So now we know that all polygons have different names according to the number of sides they have. If they have 3 sides, they're a triangle. If they have 4 sides, they're a quadrilateral. If they have 5 sides, they're a pentagon. But within those broad names, some of the shapes have many, many different variations and many different names according to their characteristics. So let's take a look at square. How many sides does it have? 4. Rhombus. How many sides does it have? 4. Parallelogram. How many sides does it have? 4. These are all quadrilaterals. So we're just going to grab our writing utensil and tell us that there are 4 sides on all of these shapes. All of them have 4. Trapezoid has 4. Rectangle has 4. Parallelogram has 4. Rhombus has 4. Square has 4. They all have 4. They're all quadrilaterals, but They all have more specific names. So just like if you saw a person that was a boy or a girl, you could call them boy or girl. Now, that's weird because we all have more specific names. So we don't just generally call people boy or girl. We call them more specifically. You might call them a sister or a brother or a nephew or a niece or a cousin or a friend. You might call them by their name, their specific name that's to them. That's the same thing with square and rhombus and parallelogram. They're all quadrilaterals, but they all are more specifically named. So we also want to talk about what makes them special. So squares, what makes them special? How many vertices do they have? I hope you remember that vertices are the points where the lines meet. So there's 4 sides. How many vertices do they have? 4. Remember, vertices is the plural of vertex. So they've got 4. Let's go over here and draw a square. There it is. So you see the sides and you see the points. Those points are the vertices. Now, how many equal sides does a square have? Hopefully you can figure that out. How many equal angles does the square have? Hopefully you can figure that out. Pause and come back and see if you agree with me. All right, hopefully you said 4 equal sides. How do we show that on a picture? How do we show that sides are equal? We draw a little line in that tells which ones are the same. So it crosses. So there's a little line that crosses like that. It crosses the line, and then we say that is, and we also do one line like that because those 2 are equal. And we do it again up here. Those 3 are equal. And we do it again over there. Those 4 are equal. Those little crossing lines, they tell us that all of those sides are the same size. Let's take a look at angles. What are these angles? Well, first of all, it's a square, so we know the angles are all 90 degrees. There's a way we show that too. I'm going to go and change a different color. Well, I don't think orange is going to show up very well. How about if I do black? How do we do that? Remember, we do a little tiny box. There's a little box that we put in the corner right there to show that that is a square corner. It's 90 degrees, and that's a very specific kind of corner. There we go. So there we've shown that there are 4 equal angles. Those are all 90 degrees. In fact, you could even put a little 90, and then you could put that little circle above that means degrees, 90 degrees. There it is. Now, we could make another square. Don't get tricked. I could draw a square. Oops, I got to move myself here. I could draw a square like that. Now, some kids might say, hold on, Miss Gubrud, that's a diamond. It is a diamond, but turn your head sideways. It's also a square. If it has all sides equal, and if it has 90-degree angles, even if you tip it sideways, then it kind of looks like a baseball diamond. That's still a square. So don't let that trick you. All right, let's go on to a rhombus. All right, a rhombus, 4 sides. How many vertices does it have? Well, let's start by remembering what a rhombus is and drawing it. A rhombus, remember, is a square that got sat on. So it started out as a square. So it started out with all 4 sides the same, and then it just got squished down. The angles changed, but the square itself didn't change in terms of the length of the sides, just the angles changed. So all 4 sides are the same. Let's see if I can draw all 4 sides being the same. All 4 sides are the same. They're just squished. So take a look at this. I'm still going to put these 4 lines right there because that tells me all those 4 lines are supposed to be the same length. But I'm not going to put these square corners in. Instead, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to show that I'm going to put one little sort of circly line on that angle because that angle is the same as this angle. So I'm going to put a circly line across like that. Those 2 angles are the same. Are they the same as the other 2? No, because when it's squished down, some of the angles get squished bigger. Oops, my lights are off. And some of the angles got squished smaller. So those 2 angles that I'm showing in green are a different size than these 2 angles that I'm showing right there in pink. Now I'm going to show those 2 as 2. And the other ones I only showed as one. So I'm going to put those two as 2 because those are a different size of an angle. The fact that it has a 2 doesn't mean it's bigger or smaller, just means it's different. It's a different size of an angle than the ones that I wrote in green. All right. How many vertices does it have? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. It has 4 sides. It has 4 vertices. How many equal sides? A rhombus has 4 equal sides. So that number is still 4. How many equal angles? This is tricky. How many equal angles are there? Pause and write it down. All right. I hope you wrote that there's 2 and another 2. It's tricky. We can't say there's 4 equal angles because those are not 4 equal angles. But there's 2 that are the same, and there's another 2 that are also the same. So that's with a rhombus. Nice to work on a rhombus. Remember, again, you can spin a rhombus all around you want. All the sides stay equal. It's the angles that can change. You can squish it flatter or skinnier, but the size of the lines stay the same. The size of the edges stay the same. The angles change. Let's take a look at the parallelogram. Parallelogram, 4 sides. Let's try to draw a parallelogram, shall we? All right. Here's my best technique of drawing a parallelogram. I'm going to draw one line, and then I'm going to go over a little bit and draw another line that's parallel to it, and then I'm going to connect these 2 sides like that. So these 2 sides, these 2 orange sides, are parallel, and these 2 green sides are parallel. There they are. There's my parallelogram. Now, look at this. I could also draw, oops, I made a mistake there. Hold on. It was messy. All right, let me try it again. Check this out. I could also draw a regular, oops, I'm trying to draw and my mouse is clicking on something. There we go. I could also draw a square. Look at that. A square is a parallelogram. I could also draw a rectangle. Look at that. A rectangle is also a parallelogram. Because a definition of a parallelogram has 2 sets of parallel sides. So let's see, let's mark the number of vertices on a parallel. The number of sides is 4. Number of vertices, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it has 4 vertices. Number of equal sides. This is tricky. It depends, doesn't it? Because it could be 4. Look at this. It could be 4. So we're going to say could be. I'm literally going to write the words could be. Because it could be ... It could be 4. A square has 4 sides equal. So I'm going to do this. Look at that. All 4 sides are equal. Could be a rectangle. What does a rectangle have? How many sides are equal in a rectangle? Well, the long sides are equal. And the short sides are equal. So it could be that it's 2 and 2. What about in this parallelogram? That's not a rectangle or a square. That is equal to that. I'm going to go grab a different color. That is equal to that. So they could be 2 and 2. So a parallelogram could have all 4 sides equal, or it could have 2 equal and 2 more equal. What about number of angles? You might be looking at the picture and saying, it's the same thing. It is the same thing. So I'm going to write same. Because look at this. Here now in the square, there's 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees. All those equal angles, all the same. 4 equals. What about a rectangle? Check this out. A rectangle is the same too. 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees. All 4, same thing. What about a parallelogram? Oh, this angle right here matches this angle right there. There's 1 set that are the same. So there's 2 angles that are the same. But This is a different angle. So this one, we're going to put two little of these circle lines like that. That's a different angle, and this one matches it. So there's 2 and 2. Stay with us. We're almost done. Let's go to a trapezoid. All right, trapezoid, 4 sides. Number of vertices. Well, let's make a typical trapezoid. This is what we think of when we think of a trapezoid right here. It's not the only kind, but it's a regular trapezoid. That's what we think of. How many angles? How many vertices? There's 1 side, 2 side, 3 side, 4 side. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 vertices. Here's a vertex. There's a vertex. There's a vertex. There's a vertex. Now, number of equal sides. Ooh, this is tricky. We got to draw a few different examples of a trapezoid to figure out what the answer is. So there's one. This one, you might notice when I made it this way, I made it regular. So those two are the same. So again, we're going to write could be because they're not all going to be the same. So we say it could be ... could be 2. That one has 2. That one and that one. What about a trapezoid like this? Is that a trapezoid? It is, as a matter of fact. How many sides are the same? 0. Yeah, trapezoids might have 0 sides equal. This still is trapezoid, still has 4 sides. Now, what makes a trapezoid a trapezoid? It has 2 parallel lines, 1 set of parallel lines. So here's this line right here. If that line is parallel to that line, it's a trapezoid. If the top is parallel to the bottom, it's a trapezoid. So it is a trapezoid, but it might have 2 sides the same, might have 0 sides the same. What about equal angles? Let's take a look at this regular one. Now look at this. I'm going to get a different color here. This angle right here is the same as this angle. So it could be 1, 2, but look at this. Those 2 angles are the same too. So we're going to put 2 lines connecting them. There's 1, 2, 1, 2. So it could be that there's 2 and 2. So I'm going to write could be that it's 2 and 2. What about over here? How many angles are equal? It's only 1 set of 2, isn't it? Which ones are equal? In order for these to be parallel, what do you think? It could be 1. These could both be 90 degrees. So then it would be just 2. So instead of 2 and 2, it's just plain 2. What if we drew one that was like this? That didn't have any right angles at all. That would be 0. So it could also be 0. So it could be 2 and 2. It could be 2, or it could be 0. Geometry is fun and also tough. You really have to think. Last one, rectangle. Hopefully we've ended on an easy note. You know the rectangle has 4 sides. How many vertices does it have? How many points does it have? You know it's 4. How many equal sides does it have? This is tricky. Don't let this trick you. Pause the video and write it down. All right. Hopefully you didn't let rectangles trick you. It could be 4. Wait a minute. 4? Isn't 4 a square? It is a square. Squares are rectangles. So it could be 4. Go ahead and, if you did not draw yourself a square to show a rectangle, go ahead and do that. Squares are rectangles. But we also know that rectangles come in different shapes. They could be long and skinny. They could be short and fat. They could be at an angle and still a rectangle. Okay, so it could be 4. There could be 4 equal sides, like a square, because a square is a rectangle. There it is. There's 4 equal sides. Or it could be 2 and 2. It could be that these 2 sides are equal, and these two sides are equal. Now, when I show a different set of sides equal, I'm going to give them a different number. I'm going to say these are a different number of lines because it's a different size of line. Doesn't mean it's bigger or smaller. Then the smaller number doesn't have to go with the smaller side and bigger with the bigger. That's not how it goes. It's just marking that if it has two lines, it matches up with the one that has two lines. Those two are the same. If it has one line, it matches up with the one line. Those ones are the same. So now we have 2 and 2. So it could be 2 and 2. All of these other ones, no matter what shape of a rectangle they are, they could be there. That one matches up with that one. And we'll go get a different color. Here's purple. And this one matches up with this one. And I'm putting 2 lines there because that's a different measurement. That's what that means. Now, number of equal angles. I hope you know this one. It's only one choice. How many equal angles do rectangles have? Pause and write it down. I hope you wrote 4. Rectangles, in order to be rectangles, have to have 4 90-degree angles. That's why a square can be a rectangle, because it has to have 4 90-degree angles, and squares have 4 90-degree angles. It has to have, but it can have 2 sides and 2 sides, but it's okay if those 2 sides match. That's okay. So rectangles have to have 4, and they're all 90 degrees. And that degree sign remembers that tiny little circle. I know this has been a long video, but I hope this has been helpful for you, and you can go back and have this to help you all through the unit as we're thinking about different shapes. Next time, we'll talk about triangles. See you next time.